Bravo Squad, go kill this Sunday. Bravo Squad, kill the Sunday.
Which waypoint, I'm sorry?
Southeast.
It's down? No, it's not down. There it is.
Here, now it's dead.
We're bringing a Cobalt Harasser, so heads up. Don't stand out on the belt.
Long stairs.
Ow!
Sorry.
I don't think he has a gunner talent. Come on behind us.
Hello, fellow Araxians. I just want to start off by saying there's no reason for Daybreak Games to shut the servers down. I saw a lot of comments to that effect that people were worried that Daybreak Games was just going to fold up shop suddenly, shut everything down, and turn off the lights. There's no reason for them to do that. You have to understand that there are still people playing Planetside 2 blissfully unaware of what just happened. Yes, a lot of us are super fans. We track the game, we track the development. But for many people, it's just another title in their library that they play when they feel like it, and they don't keep super in touch. And no matter what happens, they'll buy a boost when they feel like it, if they feel like playing for a week. Or if they get a wild hair, they might even buy a Christmas bundle. For Daybreak Games, the most expensive part of the game is the developers. Keeping servers up for Planetside 2 is no big deal. To be perfectly honest, Planetside 2 servers will stay up long after there is no longer a lead designer specifically assigned to Planetside 2. In fact, the only thing that I think could actually kill off the servers is if they actually did a Planetside 3. You'll remember Planetside 1 was still continuing on even though Planetside 2 had launched. Although it was in a severely reduced state, they didn't shut the servers off until we were well into Planetside 2. No, the truth of Planetside 2's state was very well summed up by 3 people in this one Reddit post. Rel is correct, Planetside 2 is absolutely not going anywhere. And Danger Seek is also correct, Planetside 2 is absolutely not going anywhere. And Weenus comes in and adds a little bit of color to what they both effectively said above him with a painfully true statement. And that's what I want to chat about today. To be honest, if you've been around, we've been here before. Sure, they did have Paul to help release implants, but the Planetside 2 team helmed by Rel has been teeny tiny before. This is a position Rel has experience surviving. Anyways, after the Planetside Arena launch, I think everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. There was already big cutbacks to the dev team around the original launch date, which is expected. They ramp up for the development, then once nearing release, they usually cut back because most of the work's done. But seeing the release results of Planetside Arena, I think they really have to scale back their team to match the limited number of players on their titles at this point. I want to go back in time a little bit because everything has become clear. That is, that Planetside 2 never had a chance. But I want to talk about back when we had hope. Back in 2016, H1Z1 was the rising star. It was already pulling big numbers, significantly larger than Planetside 2. And I don't think anyone really knew yet, but the Battle Royale genre was really about to pop off. Now everyone hates Smedley, and that's the price you pay for being a CEO that actually shows his face in the community. Whoever, whatever, is handling John Smedley's position in Daybreak Games now is doing a far worse job than he ever did, yet he doesn't get any hate because no one really knows who he is. John Smedley came down to the subreddit and talked gamer to gamer about what he wanted to do, about his hopes and dreams for the title, and he admitted his failures. People could easily put his name to the problems that Star Wars Galaxy faced, EverQuest Next faced, and Planetside faced. But what he did do is, even as H1Z1 was the rising star, he tried to apply resources to Planetside 2, albeit one more failure in the construction system. But that rise had all but disappeared within 2 months. So Planetside 2 hit its darkest days right as Rel was taking the helm, reduced down to basically a team of 3 developers. And a year after construction was released, they came up with a system, the implant system. Now, I don't think any developer could ever be happy about releasing a loot crate system. I think it had to be just as painful for Rel to push that on the community as it was for the community to choke down all those loot crates. But I think people that love the franchise understood why it was necessary. Loot crates is the hot monetization model. It's how free-to-play games survive and thrive. And so the community did. There was some kicking and screaming, but I really felt like the community stepped up and spent onto the system, bought into the system. I don't know how well it did, but I saw people posting about how they dropped hundreds of dollars trying to grab Carapace, and the community did not turn into full-on revolt like Battlefront 2. It seemed to me that Planetside 2 players had proven that they would pay for the game. Now, you couldn't just keep releasing loot crates. You had to show that all of that payment that went into the monetization system would turn into something more. So that's why I was pretty confused when a year later, all we had gotten was the Combined Arms Initiative and the ASP system. I mean, the ASP system truly felt like it was thrown together in a month. And historically, the content patch had always come out in the spring, where the rest of the year was kind of mostly monetization patches. And the ASP system didn't really feel like it brought content. It really felt like just a weak attempt at a prestige system. So I was really scratching my head at that point. Was the Planetside 2 community really that small that we just couldn't generate enough revenue to even be worth it anymore? Or were we that stingy that was really only a few people that bought in the implant system? Because I felt like it was a reasonable level of engagement for a free-to-play game. But then, when Planetside Arena was announced, the whole vision sort of crystallized to me. You have to remember when ASP was released at the beginning of 2018, H1Z1 had already died. Their golden goose was dead. They needed to find a new one. I'm gonna say naively, but I honestly wasn't that gullible that I thought it was a possibility. I just feel like you have to have hope, right? You have to hope that the game you love, the franchise you love, could finish its development cycle so it could really turn into something great. So I hoped Planetside 2 players paying up big time in 2017 for the implant system would mean they'd say, hey, H1Z1 is dead, but we've got this whole other community that wants us to develop this game. Let's jump on that game and that can be our new golden goose. But no, we know now what actually happened. At the end of 2018, they announced Planetside Arena. They said they'd been working on it for over a year. That would put the beginning of Planetside Arena's development almost smack dab at the end of life for H1Z1. H1Z1 went from 150,000 average concurrent users in June of 2017 to 23,000 in December of 2017. And you might say, whoa, that's still a lot, man. You got to remember the monetization here. There's no memberships. People aren't spending like they do in Planetside 2. Sure, they're getting a lot of money from a few whales, and then it's a trickle from the rest of the small portion of the player base that pays. So compared to its peak, 23,000 is basically dead. And that is entirely on cosmetic sales, okay? H1Z1 didn't sell power. So I can just picture them getting together at the end of the year and being like, guys, what do we do? H1Z1's on the way down. And then looking over and seeing Planetside 2 and being like, holy crap. This game sells loot crates, not just with cosmetic items, with actual in-game power, and its player base buys them. They don't revolt. What if, hear me out here, this is a teeny little niche MMO FPS. What if we were able to get that same type of user base in a battle royale? The battle royale genre has 100 times the interested users that the MMO FPS genre has. If we could bring that loot crate system that did so well in Planetside 2 to the masses of Battle Royale, that right there is our new golden goose. And then the worst for Planetside 2 was confirmed by one of the ex-developers. It's something I always knew really deep down. I would just hope that there's some sort of director or executive that could see their way around it. But this ex-developer confirmed it's not the case. It's pure fantasy that Planetside 2 would receive any additional resources if there wasn't a game similar to it being made. And that right there is the problem for the fans of the franchise. I didn't buy implant packs being like, oh, I'm really excited for this content. Yeah, give me more. Dump more implant packs. Dump more surprise mechanics on me. I bought implant packs because I like the game. I want the game to go on. I want to spend and assist on my trajectory in the game, right? I want to assist my grind by spending money. But if I knew that it was fantasy that we could get any real development, it wouldn't be worth spending that money. And that's a big portion of why you've seen such an extreme drop in the Planetside 2 player base since the Planetside Arena announcement, because it is a very loud voice from Daybreak Games. We're going in a different direction. Play it if you want, but Planetside 2 is a secondary objective. They're trying to treat these games like it's side-by-side development. but they just don't translate. When they were trying to push to finish DX11 on Planetside 2, they had to pull people off Planetside Arena to help, and it still came out in a pretty rough state, because they didn't give that Planetside 2 DX11 patch enough resources from the development team. On the other side of the coin, some of the bugs that were in that DX11 patch, like the screen resolution issue, was fixed on the Planetside Arena client, and it still hasn't made it to the Planetside 2 client. There just isn't parity in the development. They can't really be developed side by side. They can really only commit to one or the other at any time. The notion that we should be glad for Planetside Arena because it gets us a trickle of Planetside 2 development is hilarious to me. We kind of heard the same thing with H1Z1. Hey, don't worry, Planetside 2 will get the tech upgrades, right? Because they're going to work on the Forge Light engine and that'll help improve Planetside 2 as well. And we all know how that went. We barely saw anything from it. So asking Planetside 2 players to be happy with getting the hand-me-downs from the Battle Royale they're trying to create is just not enticing at all. I'd honestly rather just hang it up there and find something else if that's the best they can do for us. Doesn't mean I'll never play it. No, it just means hang up the hope that it could ever be something bigger, play it every now and then casually, enjoy it with your friends, and just ride it all the way down to the black hole of old, extinct games, but definitely not throw any of my good money after bad. So anyways, that's where we are. Now I've got to apologize to a few people here, because I told people to buy into it. And hopefully you have no buyer's remorse from it. You weren't buying for the future, you were buying for that moment. And saying, I like this, I want this, I'm buying just for what I'm getting right in this moment. Then that's great. You made a great purchase, there's nothing to be upset about. But if you were paying, kind of based on this notion I tried to sell that if you pay for it, development will come, well, today we're getting word direct from an ex-dev that that's pure fantasy. To me, it seemed like it would just logically follow. Okay, this game's dead. Let's look at our repertoire of titles. Okay, this Planetside 2 thing is sucking the least. Let's go work on that one. No, I don't know. The call is to go compete with Fortnite and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Whatever. I don't know how someone floats that idea and doesn't get laughed out of the room. I think people say, well, Apex Legends did it. No, they didn't just compete. They went further. They brought so much more. They took the genre in an entirely different direction. Ping system, respawn terminals, easy movement, team only, class-based, tons of lore. Like, they just blew it out of the water. They hit every point that the existing Battle Royales hadn't, and nothing in what Planetside Arena offers ever says we're going to do something unique and genre-defining. In fact, it was like, oh crap, we don't have respawn bunkers, we need to get those in. Oh shoot, we don't have a ping system, we need to get that in. Oh shoot, we don't have text chat, we got to figure that out. So yeah, now we're here. They've got a whole massive roadmap for this new title. It's going in a completely different direction than Planetside 2, so if you're a fan there, you can't just transfer to this game. I don't know what to do with this Planetside Arena thing. It takes the worst parts of Planetside 2 and crams them all into one little thing. Massive skill disparities in the teams and hesh tanks. And as we keep moving farther and farther away from Planetside, they keep trying to say, but this is our stepping stone to Planetside 3. But they've completely nuked individual character customization. Planetside used different types of armor to limit what you could bring onto the battlefield, and it used an inventory system, so you could kind of build out your character how you want. Now, a lot of people don't like how Planetside 2 limited that to you have specific classes that get a smaller array of tools they can equip, but you still do have some options. You could take the nano shield regen or the nano health regen. You could take the adrenaline shield or the resist shield. You get a few different types of turrets. Planetside Arena has completely blown all of that out of the water. You don't even get an inventory screen, it's all on your UI. You don't get to pick your attachments. You don't get to customize your class. They have dumbed down the ability for you to customize your gameplay around yourself completely. And that's just one example, the list goes on. Yet they are pitching this as a stepping stone to Planetside 3. It's not a stepping stone if you are walking away from everything that made the franchise great. It's just a different direction. Planetside 3 could be the opportunity to marry the terrific gunplay of Planetside 2 with the better map and base flow of Planetside 1. Anyways, I want to get into where the team's at. There's obviously going to be a lot of chaos and reshuffling of the teams at Rogue Planet Studios when they've lost members, so they can't really give any concrete direction yet. But I do want to help people understand the producer's letter, because I've seen people like, hey, they just laid off most of the Planetside 2 team, yet the producer's letter says the Planetside 2's team is getting reinforcements. Are they hiring new people? Obviously, we don't know exactly what goes behind the scenes, but according to the executive producer, this is a picture of everyone across Daybreak organization that helped make Planetside Arena. And who knows how wide that reaches into the company. There's coders, artists, and designers for sure. Could be ranging all the way to legal and HR people. All of those roles are an important piece of the team. So this photo is back prior to the original launch date, where we know that there were at least 50 people working on Planetside Arena, and there's a lot of really experienced people that have a really long history with Daybreak Games in this photo. People that built Planetside 2, and then people that built H1Z1 after that. And then at that time, outside of the people here, we know there are 4 or 5 people that work nearly exclusively on Planetside 2. Some people in this photo, the UI developer for sure, are shared resource between the titles. Now we know right around the original Planetside Arena launch dates there were some layoffs, so the team has shrunk since that photo. And it's a tough part of the business, but that's relatively standard. That's nothing to say, oh no, something's going horribly wrong because they're doing layoffs. Someone on Reddit put it really well, and I want to say it was Iridar, but I can't quite remember. You need a lot of workers to build a big building, but you don't need nearly that many people to maintain it. So while they're building the game, you need a lot of people on the title for the development cycle, and then when you're planning to launch it, planning to go live, you pare that down because you don't need as many people to maintain it through its lifespan. Now obviously what you really want to happen is for the game to be so successful, then you're like, oh, awesome, we need to start developing the next map, or the next item, or the next skin, then you don't have to pare down your big development team. But that is the hope and not the norm. It doesn't necessarily mean failure if you don't make it to that extremely high bar, that high level of success. So anyways, that Planetside Arena of 50 plus people was pared down. We don't know exactly by how much. Let's say it's down to 40 or so. And then you still have on the side the Planetside 2 team, which wasn't affected in that round of layoffs. And then you have the most recent round of layoffs, which came through and pared down the team further. This time Planetside 2 being heavily affected. Now, I'm certain there has been hiring and people leaving in their own volition in between those rounds of layoffs. So even if you went through and tried to be specific about counting what you could see, you would never really know the exact strength of the team. But for discussion purposes, let's say the Planetside Arena team was pared down to around 30 people, and the Planetside 2 team was pared down to around 2. And again, when I say team, that doesn't necessarily mean the people that are every day doing the actual building of the game. The team is wider than just designers, coders, artists. So when the executive producer says Planetside 2 is getting reinforcements, that is good news. You would expect those reinforcements to come from a reorganization within the Planetside Arena and Planetside 2 team, though. So it may mean, okay, well, let's pull these 6 people off of Planetside Arena, have them focus on Planetside 2, and then all of a sudden Planetside 2 has a bigger team working on it than it had before the round of layoffs. And I think other people are confused. Well, if you're just going to get yourself to the same size Planetside 2 team, why were any of those devs let go? And layoffs have a huge amount of factors, from salaries to how long you've been with the company. A lot of people that were working on Planetside 2 were pretty junior compared to a lot of people in the company, and sometimes those people are affected first in a round of layoffs. But don't take this as we won't have people familiar with the game working on it. I mean, this may be people from the original development cycle before Planetside 2 was already released. Hopefully in the next couple months, after they have had some time to take a breath, to kind of finalize a reorganization with some time to kind of figure out how to best use their human capital, then we'll get to have a developer stream and be introduced or reintroduced to the devs that are now focusing on Planetside 2. So the producer's letter is absolutely good news. My big fear here is they're going to do just enough to placate the Planetside 2 people and not really commit to it. Hey, you used to have 6 people working on Planetside 2, now you have 7. Technically, it's a bigger team. But can 7 people make significantly more progress than 6? No, not at all. To me, the only thing that would show enough commitment to the Planetside franchise is for them to completely flip-flop it and say we had 40 people working on Arena and 6 people working over here. We're going to completely switch that around. We now have 25 people working on Planetside 2, and we'll have 5 or 6 people shuffling along doing some scripting for some extra event modes in Planetside Arena. And if that were the case, we'd need to see a complete readjustment of the roadmaps. Planetside Arena's roadmap would completely blow up and they'd have to say, sorry, we can no longer hit these goals. Planetside Arena roadmap is now canceled. Here's the Planetside 2 roadmap. I would bet thousands of dollars against that ever happening. I'm just saying that that's what I need to see to feel like Daybreak Games is giving any real commitment to Planetside 2. Look guys, Daybreak Games publishes games with significantly smaller player base than Planetside 2. The game absolutely is not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about it just suddenly closing. The fear here is that we can never actually get them to commit to Planetside 2 or really Planetside 3. Now let's be real here, Planetside Arena is Planetside 3. They know if they actually title it Planetside 3 and put out a battle royale, it will be complete revolt in the community. So hence you call it a stepping stone. The problem is, it isn't a real commitment to what Planetside 3 should be. So they've either got to step back and commit to their community that's spent on implants and say, okay, we're going to get you some real development now in your title, or they got to step forward to Planetside 3, but they just don't have the resources for that, really. The reality is, if they just spent 2 years getting 20% of the way into Planetside 3, they could have sold more pre-orders than what they'll make from their limited release of Planetside Arena, even though it's already a complete game.
Now, I love PC Gamer here. You know, Andy over Daybreak Games tries to do just a real corporate speak, pep talk letter. Hey, we just went through a gut punch, but we're going to come out on top. We're going to pull through. And PC Gamer just takes it onto a whole nother level. Planetside 3 confirmed will be bigger than Planetside 2, Daybreak says. I think that's exactly what they were trying to avoid happen. Like, they wanted to allude to Planetside 3 and try to get the fan base excited, while at the same time, all they're really saying is, we're not doing Planetside 3. Right now we're working on Planetside Arena, and we hope it could lead to something else, but we're not doing that right now. So anyways, I think PC Gamer just thought they had the hot scoop. It's like Half-Life 3, right? You gotta be the first one to report it if that ever comes out. But at the same time, I kind of get their confusion, because they keep talking about Planetside 3, and you're kind of like, what? Really? Yes? No? What's Arena? Is it like Planetside 2.5? And this producer letter is not the first producer's letter to mention Planetside 3. When Planetside Arena was announced, the now ex, but Planetside 2 producer at the time mentioned that a successful Planetside Arena could lead towards a Planetside 3 in the future. So it definitely seems like a talking point that's been pushed around in the company to not take the risk of trying to call this Planetside 3, but definitely want to link it into the titles, presumably to access the fan base. Anyways, there's reasons to be hopeful. We do have to be cautious, though, and make sure it's not just lip service. We have to see some results. Every weekend, Daybreak Games, possibly Rogue Planet Studios, we don't know if they're actually going to follow through on that trademark, has been incentivizing Planetside Arena play with almost $5,000 of in-game currency potential to be handed out. Just imagine if they were willing to throw that kind of weight behind Planetside 2, what it could have done over the years. The fervor and zeal they are going after trying to make Planetside Arena work is exactly what Planetside 2 has been missing for the past 3 years and why it's felt so stagnant. At this point, their only option is out with the new, in with the old. I'll keep you updated when the new Planetside 2 development team is announced, and we see an updated roadmap for what is on the horizon on Araxis. Until next time, fellow Araxians, I will see you Planetside.